Hey everybody, and welcome to the Inferno cast, episode 018. It's going to be a very spooky episode here today because we are featuring Halloween and video games, and it's going to be featuring our favorite video games with Halloween and memories with the holiday and everything, and really just kind of a nice wild card topic. Don't really have a lot of I don't really have a lot of crazy stuff. Unfortunately, Jason is already losing his mustache.
Yep. It's
aren't
not
we
gonna
fans?
last. Yep. It's not gonna last. I tried.
Wario has been destroyed.
Yeah, Wario is losing his identity. That's okay because Mario here didn't even bother to try because I knew that mustache wouldn't even stick. But
Yep, exactly.
joining us for this wonderful cast is our normal cast and crew here. We of course have Spider-Man, aka Peter Parker, aka Simbu Darkfang, primary actor of Basement of the Dead. Spider-Man, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, it's a great place to be here in New York City, just running around, saving some people, swinging, having a good time.
Excellent. What universe are you from, Spider-Man? He doesn't know. Okay. No, not sure what universe Spider-Man is from, but that's okay. Jason the 13th, of course, from the YouTube channel of Jason the 13th. Jason, thank you so much for joining us.
Not a problem. I was hoping that the mustache would stick for a little bit longer, though.
No worries. You're at least Wario in spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And next up, we have Astrimedes. He is a developer and co-owner of Second Place Games. He is the proud owner of the best costume of the night, as he is a homicidal maniac. They look just like normal people. Astrimedes, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. There's more to my costume, but it also fell off.
You guys don't want to know where that fell off from. Believe me, before the podcast, we got a preview. It was scary. Well, we're not going to lie. Next up, of course, we have Jason, aka Stormrosesky. So it's kind of confusing. We kind of have two Jasons here. Stormrosesky, owners of the Twitch and YouTube channels of Stormrosesky. Storm, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. And this isn't going to last at all. This plastic is pushing on my nose. It's not fun. So, and I'm on camera for the first time ever on this cast. So, yay.
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 It's about time. Jesus.
No. Maybe. We'll
And we
see.
saw your assistant with their witch's broom,
I know. That's why
riding the broom in the background.
Yep. He had to clean up the mess he made. Blamed it on the cat. You know how it goes.
Storm, you got any videos coming out on your channel sometime soon?
No, soon. I hope. Nothing planned right now. School has backed up or started again. It was on fall break, so now I'm full time there this week, and a couple of days next week. So, yeah. But I do want to do another forgotten movies because someone mentioned Batteries Not Included.
Good movie.
Today, and I was like, oh my god, yes, that is a great one to mention of another good forgotten movie that nobody really talks about. I mean, it wasn't bad. We just, you mention it and people go, oh yeah, that's what I'm going for. So there you go.
That's a good one. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that. And then last but not least, we have my partner and partner in crime, Jamie Owls. Jamie Owls, thank you so much for joining us here.
Hello. Oh, that sucks. Hi, got a little tickle in my throat. I guess my Halloween costume is that I'm sick.
Uh-oh.
Happy Halloween to you.
I wasn't planning that.
AKA the poor choking lady. So if I disappear off screen, that's me giving Jamie Owls the Heimlich. So
No, I'm okay. I just had a little tickle in my throat, but I'm not live, so my Halloween costume is me wearing a robe and going as a crazy cat lady.
which is a normal everyday occurrence because we are crazy about our kitties.
We are. I'm not crazy. I'm just crazy for cats.
I'm still here. The mask is not working.
That is a-okay. Hey, at least you appeared there. So you were definitely representing our fantastic Halloween topic. But before we get into the topic, both Simbu and I want to give some reports because we've been playing some fantastic games that have come out just this past Friday. Was that the 21st, the 20th? Yeah, the 20th. And they, of course, are Spider-Man 2 for the PS5 and Super Mario Brothers Wonder for the Switch. I'm going to give my report first because I probably won't have too much to say on our main topic. So my fantastic cast and crew are going to be leading the conversation on that. But to start off, Super Mario Brothers Wonder is wonderful. It's a fantastic game. It probably rivals how good a lot of the old school NES 2D Mario games are. Probably something equivalent to, maybe in my mind, like Super Mario Brothers 3. But I need to beat it. I'm only about 10 hours into it, and I probably only about halfway through. So far, fantastic. Just the whole animations of all the characters, how it defines their overall, like, gives everything a lot more personality versus kind of that sterile look from the new series, like the new Super Mario Brothers U Deluxe on the Switch, for example. And it's one of those things where it's just a lot of fun. Love being able to select between 12 characters, great music, and I'll have a more in-depth full review on the channel, hopefully within a couple weeks. But yeah, definitely fantastic. Really indicative of both the Metacritic score of 93 that it has received. It should, if there's any justice in the world, the two games that Simbu and I are going to be talking about will be part of the 6 games that are going to be nominated for Game of the Year awards. Because of course, Mario Wonder at a 93 and Spider-Man 2 at a 91 for Metacritic. I mean, you just get 1/3 of the best games released in the year on this past Friday is amazing. And it's a good segue to Spider-Man himself to talk about his experiences playing with himself in Spider-Man 2. So Spider-Man, how is Spider-Man 2?
Well, it's web slinging fun. Honest to God. They do have a pretty interesting sort of fast travel system to it, but if if you're gonna fast travel throughout New York City, well, that kind of defeats the purpose and the fun of playing a Spider-Man game. However, I could see, I've used the fast travel once or twice just to check it out, or if I was hunting for something specific and I knew right where I was looking, which is really nice. But again, you can't beat web slinging. One of the new features they have for traversal. I won't give it away for anybody who's playing it, but it's a lot of fun to use in combo with the webs and web slinging and whatnot. Story wise, oh my God, I can't say enough. They really did a great job. It definitely does continue with the whole story arc and the timeline for the Spider-Man 1 and Miles Morales, so it does continue that. A lot of we all know Craven's in the game. Craven is really awesome. They did a really good job with him. And as anybody who's played Miles Morales should know, at the end, it's no secret that Venom does appear as, Black Suit Spider-Man. I won't go into too much more detail, but the abilities are really cool. You have both gadgets and you have abilities with your character, with your Spider-Man. So really a lot of fun. There's a great tag team kind of combo finishers if you happen to be in the same area together, PC controlled with the second Spider-Man. But overall, Insomniac did not disappoint, and I don't care what any of these fair weather, Sunday fans have to say about Spider-Man. Oh, they didn't do anything new and cool. I'm sorry, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, I apologize for cutting you off, because a lot of the fans of like God of War Ragnarok got a lot of hard time because, oh, they didn't do anything different with Ragnarok versus God of War 2018. Well, God of War 2018 was one of the highest rated games for that year, and God of War Ragnarok just followed along the lead and continued the story in such a fantastic manner that it seems like Spider-Man 2 is exactly the same way. And one Miles Morales gameplay loop is just phenomenal. So the idea that we've got maybe 20, 30, 40 more hours of it is definitely an appealing proposition.
Yeah, 100%. Not to mention that, a lot of times people see the game like this and they go, "Oh, it's open world. It needs to be 500 hours. You need to have, every little square inch. There has to be some tiny little button on the side of a tree that you have to push to find something." The side missions or side objectives aren't, yeah, they're kind of pretty much the same. Go to the spot, clear, clear out the hunter base, or defeat the little time trial thingy, or but again, at the same time, how much can you really do? You can't make every single side objective completely different, because that's a lot of prowess. However, the encounters change. You have different setups for each encounter, like different tops of different buildings. So your battlefield is a little different. And I mean, come on, you're swinging through New York City as Spider-Man. What else do you really want? What else do you really need in a Spider-Man game?
Yeah, it's a really unfortunate trend with games kind of touting time to complete as a purely positive statistic, because there are lots of games now where you can just kind of literally see where the padding is. And to me, that completely takes me out of the experience. Admittedly, I'm biased, as a developer, whatever, but like in general, I'd rather have kind of a novel, fun experience that's much shorter than a really long, mediocre experience, which is what everything kind of trends towards when they take that approach.
It's the Ubisoft syndrome where
Exactly.
let's hyperinflate everything and have everybody climb towers and complete really sort of ballast objectives that don't really have any sort of like real core crunch to the game. And it's like, okay, so your game is 150 hours long, but what was the experience if you can't remember what it was, versus you got 30 hours of Spider-Man 2 where it's gold from A to B to the completionist C. Yeah.
Yeah, and with battle passes and everything else going on, there's this really bad trend that the big game companies seem to think what players actually want is just to watch numbers go up, and that's literally all they care about. And I've even heard complaints. I don't really play myself, but I've read and heard complaints about even like World of Warcraft has actually in a weird way sort of gone in the other direction, where kind of just they're so obsessed with making sure that people can log in and level up constantly that they're sort of just dumping everyone into the end game content as fast as possible. And it's this overall weird pattern where studios think that a game needs to have an infinite end game. There needs to be a never-ending end game, and you need to get players there, and that's where they're going to spend all their time. And it's a very unfortunate pattern, I think, for like the actual fun of the games.
Yeah, and that really leads into the whole like proliferation of live service games and everything, and kind of where I'm glad to see Sony having and seeing success with games like this, especially because the very strong rumor with Sony is that they've got anywhere from like 7 to 13 different live service games in the mix, and they're, from what I'm hearing, it's not boding well for Sony right now. Like Bungie pretty much going like to the whole Last of Us multiplayer game factions, and basically saying what they had wasn't good enough for that. And it makes me wonder if some of the most recent resignations and whatnot that have been occurring with Sony are part and parcel to some of these. Like, of course, Jim Ryan retiring, and but more importantly, there's a woman, Nick Connie. Some I forget what her last name was, but it was announced that she was just let go from Sony after 34 years, where she had worked on games like Crash Bandicoot and other things way back when, and all of a sudden she's being forced out of the company. And it's like, what is going on internally with Sony and the whole live service initiative? And and obviously not to pick on Sony specifically, because all three companies are having issues right now. And I've heard of something just pop up today with the big N. So like these kind of issues aren't, they're not anything different or whatnot, but when you have core experiences like Spider-Man 2, it shows, okay, we're not perfect, but we can deliver to the player what they want in a premium package that honestly is worth the $70.
Seems like there's a lot of
Yeah.
churn going on in the big studios right now, and it seems like there's kind of a larger big churn going on in kind of technology sector in general. Like even companies like Microsoft and other companies that have nothing to do with gaming, unlike Microsoft that's trying to be the undisputed king of gaming now. Even in totally non-game related tech fields, you're seeing a bunch of developers get laid off, kind of downsizing happening. It's a really weird time right now, because you're also seeing a ton of developer positions kind of open. So I feel like part of what we're seeing now is uncertainty around AI. And I think there's a lot of shuffling going on as companies try to figure out how they're going to invest resources into AI, if nothing else, just to not fall behind the other big players there.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And that could also be leading to the whole falling of the physical media, because you can't perpetuate a video game if it depends on an always online connection to an AI server that's going to process data. You just can't do that with a physical cartridge, because you're not going to guarantee that it'll work in perpetuity like a physical cartridge would do. So it definitely seems like a real wait and see or hurry up and wait approach with the industry. So, Simbu, kind of getting back to Spider-Man 2, two questions, if you don't mind me bugging you. How many hours into it are you, and what would you rate it out of 10 just based on the hours that you've invested?
Oh, let's see here. I can tell you how many hours I'm into it. I think what did I say? 25 hours total playtime. But then again, I'm not just, I just didn't mainline the story. Of course, I get sidetracked like any, gamer does. Go by, ooh, what's this? Ooh, what's this? What's this? But honestly, I would probably go with like a 9.5 from what I have so far. Yeah. And one, there's a lot of, oh, it's kind of like meh, but you can't look at it. If you look at it from a critical, like, oh, I'm going to be a 15 minutes of fame kind of person, flash in the pan type review, then yeah, go for it. Go ahead and pick apart some of the, flaws of the game, which are nothing. I only had 2 issues with the game. I had a black screen issue at the start of the game, and that's because my VRR setting was turned on in performance mode. And my TV doesn't do 120 hertz. So it's probably just overloading my TV. So what I did was I turned VRR off, have not seen a single black screen flicker, anything like that. And Inferno Fox, you'll know, because I told you about it. I've only had one game crash, and that was, again, specific. I can state the exact moment it happened. It was a random open world event, a car chase that went between two of the New York City boroughs. And as I was going from one borough to the next, all of a sudden I had the prompt to hit the button to web sling down to the car and start the QuickTime event. When I did that, the game crashed because it was all that happening. Hey, there I go. I crashed. Woo. As that was all happening at once. And that's what I think it exactly was. The game was trying to load the next section, high speed, fast moving assets, QuickTime event start, just everything kind of happening all at once. And not to mention, I had already been playing for about 8 hours. So the PS5 was already on for about 8 hours. So running a little hot. I have not, I see all the 1.1 reviews and 0 reviews on like Metacritic, and the people complaining about, oh, the game's always crashing. They said it was playable front to back from the disc. Yeah, but they did. But they also said if you get the day one patch, it fixes a lot of the issues, some of the minor issues. But a lot of it could be, what kind of TV are you trying to play on? What are your settings for the game? That's a big thing too. Are you trying to run a 60 hertz TV, a 60 hertz 1080p TV at 120 hertz for the game? Because that's going to cause a lot of problems.
And when you mentioned the 0 or 1 reviews on Metacritic, you're of course referencing some of the user reviews, because what's interesting with this is the actual critic reviews have been nothing but stellar, hence the 91 on Metacritic. We're seeing 9s, a few 10s, a couple 8s, IGN I think with a 7, because for whatever reason IGN is almost review bombing everything recently. But what's funny is a lot of users are complaining about the bugs, but if that was an issue, why haven't the critics been complaining about that? And some of the theories have been along that patch that had just patched when the game released, maybe that did one or more things to destabilize things for the actual user base. Because trust me, games that are buggy will get reviewed negatively, as the Golem game or that King Kong game or whatever else. The critics will catch that. So it most likely, if this first patch is part and parcel to some of these issues, the second patch will clear them. It's not like it's going to be a permanent thing. It's not going to be on their permanent record or anything. But yeah, I see nothing but good things, and a Game of the Year nomination coming for Spider-Man 2.
I sometimes wonder too if in some cases those reviewers are getting like early copies where maybe they don't contain the entire game and they've removed the things that are most likely to cause issues. It's maybe a little conspiracy theory-ish, but I know it's a thing that at least can happen.
What I've seen from a lot of the YouTubers and everything like that actually do get review copies is, obviously they're not copies, they're codes. They download the game, like the what would be the preliminary like 1.00000 version of it. But yes, there's always a chance for tomfoolery, malarkey, and all sorts of crazy bojazz, shenanigans.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go ahead and move on to our main topic, hence why we are all wearing our costumes, and that of course is Halloween. And we're going to touch upon our favorite memories for Halloween with video games, and maybe even not with video games. It's really kind of a wild card topic. And so, like, I'm not out of the 6 of us here, I'm the one that watches horror and scary movies the least. Absolutely. I have no interest. I don't really play video games in the horror genre. I've just started playing Resident Evil 4, the remake, for the first time when it came out. Still haven't finished it. I will at some point. So again, I'm going to lean heavily on my cast and crew here. Is thankfully, if there's one thing to be said, that these five guys here, guys and gals, have a high pedigree with the horror genre when it comes to video games, movies, hell, even books. So I'm gonna open up the question. It was just a general question, and Jamie Owls, I'm picking on you.
Uh-oh.
What are some of your favorite horror video games?
I really enjoyed the first 4 Dark Pictures and analogies.
The
Yeah.
anthology.
Yeah, thank you. I really enjoyed
There's a 50-cent college word.
yeah, right. I really enjoyed those games. I thought those were a lot of fun, and they're not very long though, but they're still enjoyable. I really like. I haven't played them when they first started to come out with the Resident Evil games. The first Resident Evil game I played in my lifetime is Resident Evil 7, and I really like that one, and 8, of course. And I started 2 and 3, which I do need to finish. I like anything that has that psychological thriller. Some of the horror games nowadays have a lot of those jump scares, which to me seems pretty old after a while. So I like a good psychological, mind-blowing thriller.
You need to play Alien Isolation.
Yeah, that actually, if I remember right, Simbu, that was probably one of the best of the Alien games for that have released on just video games in general, right?
Yes. It has its jump scares, it has its pop scares. Of course, it's a horror game, so you know it's gonna have them. But I would say probably about 80% of the game, it's more the fact that you're in a dimly lit derelict spaceship, and just the way that you do the lighting and the soundtrack, it's a tension ride the whole time. So it's, you know, you're not like, oh, there's the alien, oh, there's the alien, there's the alien, there's the alien, whoo, popped out, popped in, half out, you know. It's a lot like the Dark Pictures anthology, which I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it with Jason the 13th. We played through all of them together. So yeah, and one great thing about the Dark Pictures anthology, I want to say before Jamie, I'll hand it back to you real quick here. But what I do want to say is that it's not so much the playthrough as the replayability with those games. So they're not super long games, like Jamie Alls said. They're maybe about 8-10 hours for the story,
At least.
That's
yeah.
fair.
Ish. So again, you play through it one way, then you play through it another way, 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 and then you add a friend and play through with a friend, and things change because now it's not the computer playing the second story, it's your friend playing the second side of the story, and whatever they choose is, well, just makes it interesting.
So Jamie Alves, you mentioned about when jump scares are overused. So based on that, what are your thoughts on the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise? Because I feel like if there's one franchise that really overplays the jump scare,
Oh
it's
yeah.
that. Would you agree, Jamie Alves?
I think so. I mean, it has to be different, and I suck at those games so much.
Oh. Yeah, it's Jason, have you done the Five Nights at Freddy's?
Not a whole lot. I remember playing one of the old ones, and then I got to play a little bit of the VR version of it.
Oh, God.
Oh boy.
Which was fun. But it's kind of like puzzle game mixed with jump scares, because you have to do certain things to be able to survive, and of course whenever a monster gets you, it's always jump scared. So they definitely made their money in jump scares on their games, although the trailer for the movie looks awesome.
Yes, it does. I want
do
to see
wanna
the
go
movie.
see that. Yep.
Now, Jason, what are some of your favorite horror video games, and why is it My Friend Peppa Pig?
I didn't even know they have a game for that. No, they probably do.
Oh, they do. Trust me, I've seen it on store shelf.
Favorite horror games. You know, I really like the original Resident Evil. The anthologies are awesome. I haven't played through a lot of the Aliens, but I have played a couple of the Alien games, and those are always fun. I'm trying to think of other like horror movies. Like I remember playing like the original Friday the 13th. It was more headache than fun though, because it was really difficult. But God, the first Resident Evil, man, I just remember me, my brothers, and my dad, and we just sit there for hours playing and playing and playing, and even that had its own fair share of jump scares and stuff. But I can't think of like too many like little games that could be like, ooh, here's this weird game to throw at you offhand.
Have you ever played Outlast?
Nope, haven't played that one.
It's a game where you use your the character uses only a camera to get through an old asylum
Ooh.
building.
Like Fatal Frame.
Yeah, that one's pretty
We
good.
did play the first Fatal Frame. That was actually a really good game too.
From what I remember seeing Jamie Owls play Outlast, like that was like horror scary. Like it was, whereas like I've seen the Fatal Frame, like it was more like, oh, kind of spooky, little spooky elements, but like Outlast was like a terror type of a feel. It's right up your alley. The second one, Outlast 2, is just it takes that and increases the whole disturbing level up
Yeah, the second one was pretty disturbing.
oh.
I want to interject though. The one thing is though, you got to look at the genre or theming for Outlast versus Fatal Frame. Fatal Frame takes place in Japan.
Yes.
So it goes off of like Japanese horror and things like that, where people here in America will look at it and go, oh, that's not very scary. But in Japan, it's all based off of their lore and mythology, as to where a game like Outlast is a little more American-ish.
I don't know if I'm going to agree with that totally, because a lot of the Japanese horror does translate extremely well here in the States. I mean, look at The Ring. The Ring was originally a Japanese horror movie, and it was adapted.
And it was actually really good.
Yeah, and it was adapted really well as a U.S. American horror thing. So, and there, of course, are a lot of the and Simbu, you got to agree with me on this, that there are a lot of people that really enjoy that whole Japanese cinema sort of a thing here in the States, to where it's even more than just liking the anime. It's the whole like assimilation into the culture sort of a deal. So like there is an audience, but I do also kind of agree with your general point, because it's sometimes the Japanese horror can be a little bit more subtle, more, I'm not going to say nuanced,
Mental.
because there are horror movies here in the States that have that nuance, but like I feel like a lot of the American horror that you might be referencing just freaking goes for it, like I
right.
think
It's a shock and awe versus like, if you look, American horror, it tends to be more blood and guts.
Like look at
Japanese horror tends to be a little more like mental, psychological, and
like,
it's not as gory.
Look at Stormrose Sky's latest video where she went over her 5 favorite movies for the Halloween season, which you of course can view at her Twitch and YouTube channels of Stormrose Sky. Well, the one that I'm thinking of is The People Under the Stairs that she featured.
Oh, that's a great movie.
Me being 8 or 9 years old, like being subjected to that by 2 mischievous, the word I want to say I probably can't say for fear of losing monetization, mischievous older brothers making an impressionable 8 or 9 year old kid watch that movie from beginning to end. Yeah, that's pretty terrifying.
Fool.
So
Again,
good.
and Inferno Fox, I do agree with you, but again, there's different styles to the cinematics for it. Like if you look at The Ring, how much blood and guts is in The Ring?
In
Not
both
a lot.
versions, like compare the Japanese versus the US, like is it
right?
Same? Is it not? I don't know.
Well, again, you got to think like, a lot of the big kills are just a lot of like withered faces, and they look just dehydrated, versus a game like Outlast, where or Nightmare on Elm Street, where Johnny Depp gets sucked into a bed and a fountain of blood just spews up onto the ceiling. So again, there's a bit of difference in cinematography and style there.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there, and it's funny because like there, think about how like Mortal Kombat isn't allowed in Japan, like simply isn't allowed there because of the gore and the gratuitous violence that's there. They don't allow it. It's not. I think the first one or maybe the second one was allowed at like a Mortal Kombat arcade unit in Japan.
Really?
Not
I
well,
did
not
not
really
know that.
rare, but that was like one of the few times that they appear in there in Japan is through the arcades. And yeah, the series generally doesn't get adapted because of the gory nature. So you definitely make a great point with that. That being said, I want to bug Storm now for her favorite horror video games, because I'm curious as to which ones that she's really enjoyed.
I self-admittedly have not played a whole bunch of horror video games. My consumption of the genre comes in a lot of what I read and watch, and I am in the process of writing a full-length horror novel, a story told through the eyes of the serial killer himself that I've created. So, it's been fun researching that, watching a whole bunch of stuff. So, and some of the things that I've had this character do, others have mentioned in their like in documentaries, real killers have said and done it. Like, well, I'm onto something. So there you go. But honestly, one of my favorites would be Zombie Army Party trilogy. I played that. That was fun. The zombies jumping out, scaring you, blah. But honest, it's gonna be cheap to say this and just real quick. But Friday the 13th absolutely is my favorite because that movie franchise is one of my absolute favorites. Yep. So that video game will be my favorite horror genre. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a great game as well, but out of all those, Friday the 13th will be just my favorites. I have seen a version of Resident Evil played. A friend did do a quick playthrough one night for me, and I don't remember which one it was, but it was a couple of years ago, so probably recent. Maybe 7 sounds familiar when Jamie Ells mentioned it. And I've seen my kids. Oh no, I've none of those. My friends' kids play Five Nights at Freddy's, and it's fun. But I agree with Jamie Owls. The jump scare is fun once in a while, but if that is all your game or your movie depends on, I'm meh.
Yeah.
I'm out. I want a little bit more story with my porn, so to speak. So
romance us a little first with some building dread, etc.
Exactly. Not just I do love a good slasher film, which a good fun slasher is the Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey. It is available on Peacock, and if you have Peacock for streaming, I highly recommend it. If you love this genre,
I have yet to watch that.
Oh, it's just fun. It's ridiculous, but it's fun. So yeah, it's good. No, I enjoyed it.
Definitely a good list of video games. It's a shame you don't have anybody to play Texas Chainsaw Massacre with.
Yeah, I know. No one.
What are you gonna do?
Hey now.
You're an all-star.
Get your game on.
We all knew that. Because Storm and I both knew that once October came around and the haunted houses opened up, that Texas Chainsaw was kind of going to be a little on the shelf until haunt season was over, because her and I played with my friends and Scurryface family.
That was so fun.
Which was a lot of fun. And of course, with the haunts opening up, everybody's a haunt actor. All the reps are haunt actors. So it kind of ruins the ability to play games. But when haunt season is over, I guarantee you, Scurryface official on Twitch, we will be starting back up the Texas Chainsaw Massacre game nights.
Yeah, and make sure to our audience, make sure you're not sleeping on Texas Chainsaw Massacre. If you like the horror genre and multiplayer games, it's actually a really, it's done really well. Like these are, of course, are the same people that did the Friday the 13th multiplayer game, and it overall, from what I've heard from people that actually like the multiplayer and the horror, it's a lot of fun. It's really good. Definitely recommend checking that out. And we'll make sure to include links in the description for when Simbu does actual like gameplay on Twitch to Scurryface. So just for all y'all listening in podcast land / watching and YouTube. And next up, I'm going to bug you, Astrimedes, and ask you both. I'm hitting you with a twofer. I want to know your favorite horror video games, and I want to know the worst horror game that you've played.
I'll start with favorites. That's probably easier. So I have one very kind of weird pick that just kind of hit me just right. It's a free, I think it's free on itch.io on PC. It's called Pylons, and it is kind of looks sort of like an old DOS adventure game, sort of, and it essentially starts out kind of pretending to be almost like a training video for a child to be careful around power lines and that sort of thing. But it gets very it's a pretty short game. It gets really strange really quickly, where these pylons, these power structures coming out of the ground, are presented as these kind of like weird malignant entities as you kind of move around the world, the very constrained small, several screen world you have. And it just does a really good job of basically feeling like an old school creepypasta game, which is essentially a theme with, the games that I like. And I think one of the most effective ways to do horror, I'll say one of the most effective ways to do horror in a game, it's kind of an easy way, is to kind of like adopt to this kind of creepypasta, it's an old haunted game sort of aesthetic. So Pylons, that one's called. It's kind of an interesting one.
Is that kind of like Pony Island?
Yeah, I was actually going to mention Pony Island later. I only played a small amount of it, but yeah, in terms of like the style, well, I'd say Pony Island is a bit different, because Pony Island becomes more like you are interacting with sort of the entity controlling the haunted game itself.
Gotcha.
It sort of does a strange thing where it's like, oh, look, it's a game about ponies. Jump, you're a pony, jump. And then like you can't jump, and then something very strange happens when you jump, and it gets kind of escalates to the point where it's like an almost a weird exchange where your input is the game doing whatever weird task the game is asking you, and you're trying to either subvert or follow the instructions the game is sort of giving you. So that one's kind of an interesting one too. But I guess in terms of like favorites that I played a lot of maybe a little bigger games, I remember definitely partially through nostalgia and partially because it was pretty groundbreaking at the time. Resident Evil 2 at the time that I played it back in the day was just so impressive to me, because it really was the first game that was basically, to me anyway, that felt like it was really being cinematic with the presentation. The camera angles were very much designed to kind of heighten tension. You'd have, all these kind of very untraditional video game angles for scenes, specifically designed to kind of create a certain experience in that scene. It's harder to see, the camera will be oriented in a way when you're walking towards the camera. You can see that thing, creeping in through the window behind you, and it really nails kind of the movie experience of like watching, one of the heroes get crept up on or whatever, and just sort of a nice amount of tension from that, and combined with kind of like scarce mechanics. I think Resident Evil, I didn't really play Resident Evil 1 much at all, if any, but it feels like Resident Evil 1 and 2 really sort of really defined what is kind of modern horror survival sort of genre with a lot of those choices. And then I'll say I recently started playing, very recently in the last couple of days, I started playing a game called Inscription, which is I think on basically every console at this point. Yeah, it's on PC, Steam, other stores. PS4 and 5, Xbox One, Series X, blah blah blah, Switch. And this game, so it's called Inscription with a Y. And this game, it starts you off as sort of, you have a 3D view. You're sort of a captive in sort of a weird cabin with sort of a strange, creepy captor that's keeping you there. And you're kind of told to start playing a card game. And the card game has these like heavy themes of, of like sacrifice and death. And it sort of becomes a weird escape room game as it goes to. You can get up from the table. There's hints in the book of rules about the card game that you use to solve a puzzle in the guy's house. Like it's really well done. And later, I haven't actually played this far yet, but I know from bits and pieces I've seen, later it actually switches it up where you're not playing a card game. You're playing sort of like an old school, almost Pokemon-like, again, sort of creepypasta-like kind of game to advance sort of what's going on, all with this really interesting kind of framing mechanic of like you're trapped in this cabin sort of trying to figure a way out. It gets the ways it starts to feel really kind of horror based in the mechanics is that for example, there's a special item, it's these pliers, and in order to win or lose the card game, there's scales that will get weighed either towards your opponent as they take damage or towards you as you take damage. So things get piled up on these scales. So there's this power up that it's just this set of pliers, and it says use these pliers to weight the scales in your favor. When you use the pliers, you see an animation of, it's in first person view, and you see an animation of your character grabbing the pliers, sticking them in his mouth. The screen goes red. He pulls teeth out of his mouth and places them in the scale on the other side to kind of weigh the scales. There's some other power up later where you remove an eye to do something, and it messes up your vision after that because now your eye's gone. So it does these really interesting sort of immersive stuff around more kind of traditional like video game mechanics. So it's a really interesting like package, the whole thing. And I think it's on sale right now for $9.99 also, at least on Steam. I'm not sure what prices are on other consoles and such. And then just one more throwaway mention, I'll say, in terms of like my favorite game, it's sort of horror themed. This is maybe arguable, but Darkest Dungeon 2, which I've been playing for a while, continues to just impress me. It's just such a deep game with such good mechanics, and really it says in the beginning of the game that every time you start the game, there's a disclaimer that says Darkest Dungeon is a game about making the best of a bad situation. And they have all these mechanics that the odds are really stacked against you. You're constantly going to be taking kind of like unavoidable status effects and everything. And it really carries us through, even in like the power-ups. Basically any power-up in Darkest Dungeon that gives you something good almost always gives you something bad in addition. The whole game is sort of about like managing the situation you've both put yourself in intentionally with the choices you've made for your builds and everything, and then also the game just heaping up the kind of damage and seeming unfairness on you. They really nailed the balance, because in the first game, I think the balance was actually a bit off, where it more often kind of felt unfair and cheap, a lot of the kind of like losses you would take, and they've really gotten it just right with this one. I'm really, I really like this game. I think I'm going to keep playing it for a long time. So yeah, those, and then, so you asked worst.
Yep.
I'm very careful about the horror games. I'm really careful about the games I play, because I said for the longest time that, I love the idea of horror games, but I often think the implementation is totally off. One I'll just pull out at random that I've seen on Steam. I don't remember exactly the name, but one of the many Slender Man games on Steam, where basically it appears to be a game where someone has essentially taken the default Unity assets and made a tiny forest, and you run around it and you collect papers, and then the Slender Man scares you, and you need to collect 10 papers before he scares you to death or whatever. And like a lot of people bought that game. And as someone who almost no people bought my game, it's kind of frustrating to see, though, totally understandable how that kind of thing sells. And in a way, it's, a lesson you can take away about games. The games that sell the best are not necessarily the best games.
Yes. I definitely agree
That's
with you
true.
on that.
I'm say worst games. I don't know the names of them, and sorry to any and all young people that play all Roblox games, because I've watched my nephew play some horrible Roblox games. And there's some horror ones that he's playing, like, oh, da, 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 and I'm sitting there watching going, it's not scary at all, but they're supposed to be horror games, so you know.
It's funny you say it. Kind of reminds me of junk YouTube, where junk YouTube was a big issue a few years ago for kids watching it, and it literally is a bunch of people from Southeast Asia in costumes that look a little bit, actually a lot worse than what Simbu was wearing, and just literally dancing around the screen, and it just picks up the algorithm because of who they look like, and they have the word Spider-Man in there, and junk YouTube ends up getting like hundreds of thousands of views because back then, even just a couple years ago, the YouTube algorithm was so bad. It's like, I wonder if it's junk Roblox, that being a whole thing.
Maybe. Not sure.
Simbo, I'm curious. What are some of what is like the worst horror game or games that you've played? Because like I'm really curious with your horror game pedigree. Like what's been the worst?
I mean, one of them I gotta agree with is Astrimedes, is the Slender Man slash Slender Man style clones. They're just not fun. There's no skill involved. It's a lot of just luck or memorizing the map. I gotta say that's probably the worst. But close ringers, games, and I will say I love the Texas Chainsaw Massacre game. I enjoyed Friday the 13th, but games like Dead by Daylight, I don't. To me, that's one of the worst games because you've got people who know all these metas for games, and realistically, there's really only one real way to play a Dead by Daylight match as the killer. The game is completely in the killer's favor, so survivors have little to no chance if you're a casual player. So, and that's just my opinion, hot take. Yell at me in the comments if you want, but it is what it is.
No, that's honestly, I trust your opinion on that, because that's why you probably saw my face be surprised, because I've heard very, very polarizing opinions regarding that particular game, where there's a lot of people that really enjoy it, but then others that are like, okay, this is bull crap. Like, how am I supposed to win this when it's like the like you said, the killer is super powered?
Yeah, exactly. That becomes an issue because there's, like, I was talking with one of my buddies, Doc Clue, from another YouTube channel. I believe it's actual or real good voice acting. I believe this is the YouTube channel. Or Doc Clue, I think, is one of his channels. But he was explaining to me all these metas for the killer and things like that. And once you've got people in a game like Dead by Daylight who are so many years invested, they know all these metas. So they're able to pull off stuff that a casual player like me is going to go, well, how in the hell did he just do that?
I feel like that's
that
kind of
makes no sense.
The Rocket League problem, where the idea of Rocket League is fun and everything like that, but there's no point in jumping into it now, because it's been going on for so many years, and if you try to jump in, you're just going to get overwhelmed by players who are just so good at it that it's like, okay, what it's not fun.
It's a 50-50 on that one. Me and Simbu have had matches where we destroy people and we're not that great at the game. And then we have matches that we just get our butts handed to us.
Those people you destroy are noobs.
Yep, exactly.
Well, but let me caveat, because I'm not going to just dog Dead by Daylight. When I'm playing with my peers from Scurry Face, I actually have a lot of fun when we're playing private matches. It's
Private matches,
It's-
though.
Right. It's more fun when you're playing against friends. The other thing, one of the biggest things that bothers me in any game, and I don't care what game it is, it's any multiplayer game, is camping.
Yeah.
And in Dead by Daylight, one of the metas is camping a hooked survivor. So if you catch me and I get hooked, well, guess what? I'm dead because you're just gonna sit around me the whole time and they're not gonna be able to save me.
See,
But-
now you're gonna make Mobster mad because Mobster is Mr. Sniper. So
Well, that's different though. You're
still camping.
That's
Not
camping.
really.
It's
Still
camping in a
stationary in
shooter
one
though.
spot.
Right, but it's camping. There's a difference between camping in a shooter versus camping in a multiplayer game where you're camping your victim. It would be different if Mobster would camp a downed player so that his teammates couldn't get him.
So it kind of makes me think of 30 Days a Night, where the vampires were using the 16-year-old girl as bait to try and get the other humans to try and come in and help and save her so that they could then attack the people
Right.
who were trying to help the girl.
Yeah,
Predator
but-
does that too.
Kind of sounds like a good strategy to me, to be honest. Like if it
It
pisses
is.
you off and it actually results in the killer killing.
Also see it in Fortnite all the time.
Yes.
People camp,
Yeah.
you knock out somebody and you camp their body and card because you know their teammates are going to try getting them.
Yeah, the problem
So-
with those strategies, those is it removes fun from the other players in a way that's worse
Exactly.
than just
does.
the fact that you win. It's
But-
like, it's like how games avoid things like, straight up boring stun effects now by and large, where it's like, oh, cool, I get to just wait while something else happens.
Right, but I want to say this in Fortnite. If let's say if Inferno Fox, Storm, Jason the 13th, and I all killed Astrimedes, and we camp his card, Jamie Owls, Mobster, and Run Jin Run still have a shot of taking us out and getting his card back. In Dead by Daylight, your survivors don't have any real attacks. They have a flashlight and firecrackers, I think, or something equivalent to firecrackers from Friday the 13th that can stun the killer. But how many people, when you try, how many people really carry the flashlight versus how many people carry med kits or toolboxes for healing or repairing the generators?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it.
Yeah, I think overall it's interesting where, like, maybe if they were able to corral that a little bit more, but then maybe allow more customizability, because one of the things that I feel game, not really a horror game, but more suspense or thriller, would be Among Us, because that really empowers both the survivors to be able to work together and find out who the killer or imposter is, as well as complete tasks to be able to beat the killer or killers. It also allows the customizability to be able to say, okay, do you want 1, 2, 3 imposters?
Sounds like you're trying to talk about Among Us right there.
He is.
Yeah, I said
I
Among
literally
Us.
said that.
Did you? Oh, sorry. For some reason, I had a different. Thought you said a different game.
No worries.
It's the mustache.
Apparently,
You heard right, wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like the Midwest thing. No, yeah, no. I mean, two totally different things. But yeah,
maybe.
it's funny because, like, I feel the balance with Among Us was really done well. But if you're one of the things that I've noticed is individuals with, like, ASD, for example, have a very bad time with Among Us because of the idea of trying to say you didn't do something, and then people are like, oh, he's the imposter, and then they get thrown out to space when they're not the imposter, because they're not able to regulate emotion well enough, either via the keyboard or the mics and everything like that. But I digress.
I don't know about that. I've seen that happen multiple times without any of that.
One of the kind of getting us back on track, because we're
Yep.
getting real close to the end of the time here. I want to bug Jamie Owls and Storm especially for some of their thoughts just in general before we of course finish things out. Jamie Owls, do you have any specific memories of you playing video games on or around the Halloween season that fill you with the nostalgia feels, the rememberies?
To be honest, I have not played horror games when I was younger. I would say I started that more in my 20s. Like honestly, I usually just play video games all year long, so I don't have like any nostalgic feelings. Usually I'm only with that with horror movies. I'm not with that with video games at all.
Same.
Because like for me, I have memories of playing Super Mario All-Stars during Halloween.
Oh, okay.
It sounds like a really weird thing because the game came out in July of 93, but we picked it up in October of 93, if I remember right. And so when you got all the spooky crap going down, and like I said, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of all the spooky
Oh.
stuff, even though, as you can tell, I have a bit of a knowledge base for all of it. Like I don't like it. It's not so much fun to me. So like it was great to be able to escape to a new and cozy Mario game between being terrified from two older brothers that love to just have fun and throwing scary crap on the TV or with games and whatnot. So, but yeah, so that's our basic conversation regarding Halloween and video games. And if you, the listener / viewer, have any memories that you want to share, make sure you put them down in the description below on YouTube, or make sure you subscribe through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and Samsung and everything else. Thank you again so much to the fantastic and spooky cast and crew here. Jamie Owls, of course, she is my partner in crime. Jamie Owls, thank you so much for joining us in our very spooky podcast.
Thank you very much. I'm going to play some more of the DLC version of Resident Evil 8, and I'm going to go to bed with nightmares.
And you have a very spooky game coming out that you're going to take 2 days off for. Which game is that?
Alan Wake 2. It comes out this Friday.
So definitely you're looking forward to that. That'll be fun for you.
I'm going to put a do not disturb sign on me, so I just want to play all day.
There you go. Hopefully your cats don't ignore it. And Inferno Fox too, you know.
Yeah.
Well, he's one of the cats.
She'll know I won't be in the same room, because when she plays the spooky games, I'm like, nope. I'll be in the game room. I'll be here working on stuff that you see here on the channel.
There you go.
Speaking of which, Stormrosesky, thank you so much for joining us. You of course can view her at her Twitch and YouTube channels of Stormrosesky, and make sure to check out her latest and greatest video of her 5 favorite spooky, scary, Halloweeny movies. Storm, thank you again.
Oh, thank you for having me. And you know, there's just one little Halloween thing that we forgot to mention as we talked about Fortnite, but I'm about to log off and go buy Michael Myers in the Fortnite store because he is available for purchase. So, you know, there's more V-Bucks to that wonderful, wonderful Fortnite. So, but whatever. I had to get Jack Skellington last night. Gonna have to get Michael Myers, and hopefully this means we'll be seeing more slashers in Fortnite in the future. So Michael's not a favorite, but I'm going to buy him to make sure that that genre gets the support, and you know there is an audience for more than just anime in Fortnite.
Yes.
Hey, he's not that bad. I think he's at I think it was 1,800 for him for his bundle.
Yes, for the whole thing, which is not bad considering Jack was 26 and that hurt. But what are you gonna do?
Mr. Beast and Kid Leroy and all these other things. Good for those that enjoy that,
yes.
But it's not for me.
Exactly.
Not for me. Speaking of not for me, Astrimedes, thank you so much for joining us. You are, of course, developer and co-owner of Second Place Games. Thank you again.
Always glad to be here. I just want to very quickly throw out two more titles of kind of interesting horror games. So one is called Faith, the Unholy Trinity. It's on Windows, PS4, and Xbox. It's kind of looks like an old school adventure game, is a kind of exorcism game. And one of the really interesting things is the developer did some high frame rate rotoscoped animations that periodically show up as sort of like a much more interesting jump scare than you'd see in something else. And then World of Horror, which just had its version 1 release. I think World of Horror is available on essentially any day now, or now already. It should be available on I think most consoles. Also, if you like Junji Ito and creepy kind of Japanese style horror with some kind of Lovecraft Eldritch God type stuff thrown in, you'll probably like World of Horror.
Very good. Very cool suggestions and everything like that. Thank you. Definitely appreciate it. I like the power lines one that you had mentioned. That sounds interesting. I'm gonna have to add that to my Steam playlist when that goes on sale for $1.
Or just watch it on YouTube. Unfortunately, a lot of horror games, I think you can get actually a lot of the experience by watching on YouTube, which I feel conflicted about as a developer.
You mean it? You mean that game wasn't just, you know, a random voice saying you must construct additional pylons the entire time?
Yes, done in a creepy way.
It's like Field of Dreams, but creepy. And Jason the 13th, who of course has the YouTube channel of Jason the 13th. Thank you so much for joining us. You got any content coming on your channel soon?
Yes, I've actually got time to finally start the DLC for Pokemon, and I have the first video ready to go to post. I know it's been a while and I'm late to the game, but I will be posting the first video.
Yeah,
Part of the DLC for Pokemon.
And definitely make sure you check out his channel. We have links in the description below, as well as in all of the podcasts descriptors. So definitely check it out for some great Pokemon and Tears of the Kingdom playthroughs. But last and certainly not least, we have Spider-Man, aka Simbu Darkfang. He is a primary actor of Basement of the Dead. Again, plugging that again, that's Basement of the Dead, located in Aurora, Illinois. If you are in the Chicagoland area, I definitely recommend checking that out. We've got a lot of great actors like Simbu who work really hard during the Halloween season. So make sure you come out and you respectfully support them as they go through their performance and craft. Simbu, thank you so much again for joining us.
Hey, it's always a great time. And yes, please, please, please get out there, support your local haunts. Just know that Fridays and Saturdays are right now going to be the busiest time. So expect extremely, extremely long wait times because, well, you waited till the end of October. Guess what? So did everybody else.
And if you believe in any of the supernatural, this is the thinnest part of the veil right now up until the 31st. So if you're going to try and press your luck, now is the time, but be prepared to wait, because that honestly, that's actually a good tip, just to make sure that you are tempering your expectations, but you'll be in for a really great time. And of course, thank you, our listeners / viewers. We are going to be taking next week off because it would normally premiere on the 31st, but we don't want to be sitting here doing podcasts on the night of Halloween. Some of us are going to be doing the haunting. Some of us are going to be doing the hiding, because people have older brothers that like to scare younger brothers, and it leaves them with emotional damage. So thank you again for joining us, and hope you all have a great day and a great scary Halloween.